So the character of Mr Sloane is, as you pointed out, quite enigmatic, and he doesn't really give away much. He asks a lot of questions, and he kind of arrives in the lives of this family and disrupts it. But he's kind of someone who doesn't really care what other people think or feel, or he kind of just does what he wants, and he's not really sure what it is he eventually wants to get from it. So he's kind of quite petulant and quite kind of... he turns on a sixpence and kind of changes what he wants at a moment's notice.
Kath lives in a house on the edge of a rubbish dump with her elderly father, Kemp, and she meets a young man, Mr Sloane, and brings him back to her house and as a lodger. And she's quite a sad character, really, I think, and she takes a romantic interest in Mr Sloane, as does her brother Ed. And throughout the play, we find out more about Mr Sloane, but we also find out more about Kath. She's quite a sad character, really, I think. She's rather naive and quite likes to think she's sexy, and she's, but in some ways in the end she comes through. She's actually quite strong in the end. So she's been a fascinating character to play.
I play Eddie in Entertaining Mr Sloane, and Eddie's a very menacing, dark, powerful character. Kathy's brother arrives on the scene in order to get rid of the lodger, Mr Sloane. He doesn't want men hanging around the place. But basically, when he arrives and sets eyes on Mr Sloane, we see a completely different side to Eddie. And despite his upright, moral stance, very only interested in very upright issues, he turns out to be totally attracted to Mr Sloane, and it's a story of his seduction and the various triangles that take place between the characters. He basically wants to possess this young man and takes him on as his chauffeur and more besides. And it's a battle between the brother and the sister in order to basically win the sort of affections of young Mr Sloane.
A lot of people say, wow, some of those themes are still relevant today. There's misogyny, there's racism, there's a little bit of homophobia, or at least not homophobia, but the problems of middle-aged people still being in the closet and not being happy to come out. And those resonate today. It's still quite funny, so that still resonates today. On the other hand, it is a classic piece, so that people might look at it and say, well, I really enjoyed that. It was very funny and disturbing as a black comedy, but it's also of its time. So it's interesting to watch it and look back and say, wow, this is what life was like 50 years ago.